Call to order the regularly scheduled school board meeting. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of September 28th. Any comments on those? Yep. Take motion to approve those minutes. Oh, second. Kevin, and all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Oh, aye. Opposed, abstentions, and that motion carries. Next up is correspondence.
Just the intensity estimates letter, order of activities, and that's for the month.
Oh, you know what? I did. I think we might have all received it though, as a board. We received a from the environment. Thought we had all received it, but maybe it just didn't. Okay. I can forward it to anybody that wants it.
What was that from? I didn't hear you.
I think youth vaccinations. I didn't know. So that business.
Yep. Currently, this week, the auditors are here. We've been here since yesterday, which is only Tuesday. There were 4 in the conference room yesterday, there were 2 today, but 2 firing stuff in from the main office there. And they'll be back tomorrow, but it's going well. I mean, it's, you know, we welcome them to come in every year and they go through a lot of very thorough. Yeah, so that's going on this week. I also gave you, as we discussed at the last meeting, a little packet of the financial results from 21-22, and I can go through them now as briefly or as in-depth as you want, but I'll just kind of summarize what's in the packet here. So it's just a summary sheet. The first sheet is our food service fund, and I always do a little snapshot of the food service fund. It is not self-sustaining. We normally have to subsidize it from the general fund, as you see. But last year, so if you look at the actual 2021-22 results, last year we had the smallest subsidy we needed so far from the general fund. And the reason for that is everyone ate for free. So our participation was really high. You know, the food service, when you look at the numbers, we're small. It's all about volume. You know, it's pretty bare bones when you look at what they have running the food service. So there's not much more cost that you can really get out. It's driven by the revenues. So last year we had a good year. Unfortunately, this year we no longer have everyone eating for free. And you'll see our budget for the 22-23 school year is to come in at quite, say, loss, that we're going to need quite a subsidy coming into the year. You know, we're looking this year at higher costs for labor. We're looking at higher costs for food, probably lower participation, because that's just how it is. The one thing we did get at the end of last year, and I just applied for another grant, is this supply chain assistance grant. We got about 10,000 last year, and I just applied for some more, and that can cover any of the costs for the increase in the food cost. So that will hopefully lower that subsidy amount that we need as we go into the year. So anyway, that's our food service fund for last year, and we'll do it next year. The next 2 pages is I go through all the major line items in our general fund and try to summarize that so that you can see kind of how the year was, budget versus actual, look at some trends, and then look at the end of the year what our unassigned fund balance was, which is on the 2nd page, which is when you look at your net of your revenues and your expenditures that you had budgeted for. So we're sending back about $500,000 to the towns after we set aside $100,000 into our trust funds and that $150,000 retained. But some major things. So when you look at our revenues, our revenues pretty much come in at where we budget. we did have less Medicaid revenues, and I think a lot of that is with some paperwork and some changes in the Medicaid laws that we've seen the last couple of years. So I know they're working on that with MSD, who's our Medicaid provider. But when you look at our expense lines, like salaries and health insurance, we had, those numbers are positive, which means they're less than what we budgeted. So positive is actually good in the expenditures, but the reason, and I have gone through these numbers and I've been talking to the auditors about it because they look at the same things. They're like, how come in this line you budgeted for this much in salaries and in actual it's less? So we know we reduced 1/2 of a teacher, but we also had 3 different staff changes in teachers. So we had new teachers come in that were paid at different amounts than what we originally budgeted, plus their benefits. So the benefits go along with that. So you might have a teacher that left that had a family plan, and you have a new teacher that comes in that has a single plan. That's like $20,000 difference right there. We had some changes in our custodial staff. We had someone retire, someone leave, we replaced them with part-time people. So again, we had changes in wages and benefits there. We had some money that we had originally budgeted because we were kind of in the transition from outsourcing all of our transportation. So we had some money in there for bus driver salaries. We didn't use that because we outsourced our transportation. So again, we had IDEA, we got some additional IDEA money. So we were able to fund 2 paras when we usually only can fund 1 para. So, taking all those into account, when you look at your salaries, your health insurance, which are 2 very big lines in our budget. And then when you look at the salary related benefits, which is FICA and retirement, which drive off your salaries. So if your salaries are less than what you budgeted, those benefits are going to be less than what you budgeted because they're based on those salaries. So again, we didn't have too many negative lines. Heating oil was negative, meaning that our heating oil costs were higher. 1, because of our usage, and at the end of the year, we had actually needed more oil, so it was outside of our contract, so there was an increase in the rate. We are locked in at $3.80 a gallon for this year. We budgeted $3.50, so who knows where we're going to end up. And we have a new system in the elementary school. We'll have some savings there. We do have an energy trust fund that we set up years ago. So if things really do get bad, we can pull money from that. You'll see that in our trust funds.
Do we put money in that every year?
We stopped doing it for a while because we hadn't
I
touched
thought
it,
so.
of course, now, But it's funny because I've been talking to some of the other school districts in the North Country, and they're like, oh, that's a good idea to have that. So some of them are actually starting a trust fund for energy just for those fluctuations.
Yeah, I thought we had stopped. Maybe
Yeah, we haven't done it for the last, 3 or 4 years. I did go back to look at that. But we have about $25,000 in there.
That
So,
sounds reasonable.
yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll go over that line by that much, hopefully not, but,
Well, we went over by 29 this year, right?
well, yeah, but we also, that's true too.
But then we
We did.
budgeted.
Yeah, we have
More
budgeted the
appropriate.
higher amount, yeah.
That wouldn't hurt to start putting stuff back into it a little bit.
Right, so when you guys, when we look at the budget, yeah. Electricity costs. Now, electricity, you can see, we had a plus in that. We've had, and we've been locked in at a rate, plus we had some billing issues with one of the carriers who hasn't been billing us the right amount. We can try and tell them, you're not billing us the right amount. But we're gonna, I think this year we're okay. I think we're locked in at the rate until the end of next June, but we should see.
So the schools didn't double like everybody else's did? We're locked in there?
No, I mean, we haven't seen that yet. Again, the supplier, because we had locked in, we had a multi-year contract with them.
Okay.
So, but. The site services, like we had some grant money, so instead of paying $100,000 for those services out of our general fund, we paid $67,000. We used grant money to cover that. We got some additional IDEA monies this year that covered some additional paras, some site services, so things like that helped. On the second page, pupil transportation, I think at the beginning of the year, we weren't fully running all of like the runs north. It wasn't until a few months into the year that we started, because they only billed us for, even though we had a contract for them to do all that transportation, the first couple of months of the year, they didn't bill us for the trips north. Also, they only bill us for athletics when they drive us. We have had some issues with them being able to supply those buses. We still having the same issues, especially during soccer and like baseball season, just because of the timing of when the buses go. So you might see another reduction in that this year, but we are locked into a contract for that. So, anyway, if you have any specific questions underneath the lines, that's our major lines in the general fund. The next 2 pages are our trust funds, and yeah, you can see in the energy fund is 25,000. So the first page is where we are today, 22, 23. We'll be putting the $100,000 into those trust funds as indicated in the deposits. The second page is where we ended up last year. And then the last 2 pages are our school district profile, which comes out of the one of the state reports, the MS-25, which again, I like to look at this for some trends to see where we're at. When you look at like the percentages of regular ed and special ed and things like that, you can see our cost per pupil. Our cost per pupil definitely took a jump this year. Some of that is due to additional, like we talked about, additional grant funds that we received, because that's factored into that number. But I went back, well, you can see in 2021, our cost per pupil was $25,963. 21, 22, it's about 28,000. In 2019-20, it was 26,874. So in 2021, it went down. But in 2021, we also had 20 additional students because we had some kids here during COVID. And then those kids left 21, 22. So not only is some of our costs and expenditures like grant money and things like that increasing, but our pupil numbers went back down. But if you look at our total recurring expenditures, which is 3/4 of the page down, in 21-22, that figure was $7,938,268, and the year before it was $7,755,000, so about $183,000 increase from one year, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, you know. So there's so many factors that when we're looking at that cost per pupil that can really change it from one year to the next. But again, one of the things I like to look at is those percentages to see our major function lines, if there's any major changes from year to year. I think we'll see too many. And that is it.
Thank you.
Elementary kids cost more.
Some of it's the special ed, a lot of the special ed costs.
I don't mean specifically.
Yeah, no, I mean, because with high school too, you have like athletics that you may not have in elementary, but so a lot of our stuff, you know, we have the partner program, not, you know, it's that. But then again, we might have an out of district or another placement at the high school level, so that kind of offsets that. But you do see more of your special services, I think, at the lower levels, maybe more speech, more OT. So,
Thank you.
Well, good luck this week with the auditors.
thank you.
Okay, we did have our, so K through 12 has now completed the safety declaration drill for reunification. We've never had a reunification declaration, so this was the first year that we have completed that. And then all the other drills we will continue to have. There's so many that we have to do by law. We'll just do that and then report them and we send it to the state. The budget process has begun. Teachers are having to look at what they have this year and projecting for next year. So they'll be working on that for the month of October. In the month of November, the team will be looking at that and over that budget. Each of the teachers' requests. And then we'll be presenting the board a budget at the end of November. So that we'll have time in December to be able to do 2 meetings of the budget. First negotiations went well. You will need to, maybe not tonight, but another night, look at a non-meeting, discuss some ideas and proposals. That we'll see. necessary. And you have a master schedule, the current master schedule is in there as well. It does give the numbers for each of the students and the staff. Remember, that's only until December. You have to change it again. Yeah, some of them will change. I mean, your 1 year courses like English and math and all that will remain the same, and all the other courses may switch a little bit. So the numbers will change. The technology committee did meet on October 5th. Development was discussed. We will be starting a professional development program for technology for staff after school, 2:30 to 3:15. So they can get used to the new systems and just the funding formula and the facilities committee meeting minutes are also included. Staff did have a meeting on the strategic plan a couple weeks ago. They started going over the strategic plan, going through it, and then today we'll just review it, the big picture review, and then they're working in their small groups and their classes. Let's see. We just have the board action. We have the policies to go into second reading.
I just want to start by saying thank you to our staff and let you know that we're really impressed with our professionals and their administrative team, assistance team, working really well together and building those relationships with kids. I don't think that so much our administrative assistants doing that, but they do, and they're doing a great job, and so are their professionals. So not that our teachers aren't either, but they do good on you guys. We have some things coming up. One has to do with the Lion story, and I believe that they came. This gentleman who talks about bullying, harassment, suicide prevention has come maybe about 10 years ago. He said we're looking at sometime either in December or January, and we're making kind of like a 3-part event. We'll have a middle school presentation, high school presentation, and a family presentation afterwards. So we're putting that all together. Bring a little bit more awareness to maybe some of the bullying stuff like handicap in school, how to adjust and change. We're looking at the PSA test or PSAT testing tonight. The 10th of October 24th. Discuss special order. So we're setting up schedules for that. Typically, we release high school kids afterwards, just because it's kind of a stressful time for them. We're also going to be looking at our focus is on writing for our PLCs, which we talked about, professional working communities. And within that writing, what we're doing is kind of going over goals for the middle school, what are our goals for that, where are our weaknesses and strengths in terms of so those are the beginning steps, kind of similar to what they did with demonstrate success over the last couple of years in the elementary school. We're also going to do a shift in terms of parent-teacher conferences. So we will have our parent-teacher conferences this year in November, like we typically do. It might be an abbreviated version of it. But remember, according to the strategic plan, we're moving towards what's called student-led conferences, or what we like to talk about as a presentation of learning. So we'll set up something in the spring where students are going to be putting together portfolios and presenting to the public, either parents or guardians or someone who else wants to come in and celebrate what they have done within the learning. So not only will we do parent-teacher conferences in November, kind of like showcase what's been going on with the learning, where the students are in charge of the conferences. So more of that will be rolled out with a letter sent to parents and families. Let's see. Yeah, that equipment that we were given the opportunity to purchase has arrived and it's been installed already. So it's nice. Yeah, they're excited about it. Other than that. I would say, we participated in a lot of schools. Yes. It was a good turnout.
Same thing as the legal.
Committee reports, I saw we had some.
Yeah, I have some minutes in your packet on the different committees that we've had meetings with. Also on your policy committee, policy EHAB, it needs to be held over second reading. So these can all go to second reading.
This just says EHB.
Yeah, there's an EHAB.
Oh, it's not listed on here.
That's
Okay.
why we have to hold it
Oh,
over.
okay.
We've had it in packets.
Okay,
But we just forgot to put it
sure.
on the agenda. So that would just go to second, and you can vote on these.
Okay.
So everything except for the desk.
Right, and EHAB will need to be voted to second reading, because it wasn't officially voted to second. reading.
Oh,
No,
so-
don't hold this off. They're saying there's another one, EHAB.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Oh,
So
okay.
EHAG needs, it needs to be. The rest of them are already voted.
Correct.
Was there any further comment on policies?
So I don't think we're-
I think there was so one of the ones was trying to narrow down the elections
Yes.
and how they were redirecting to different policies. Did we ever-
It was BB. It says BBBC, but it should be BBB. It says vacancies that occur before the expiration of a member's term should be filled pursuant to board policy BBBC. But when you go to BBBC, it sends you to BBB.
So it should say BB.
Yes. That was the only thing.
Yeah, and that looks like that one didn't get changed. Yeah.
I was
It's fine. It was a
confused by the
confusing,
minutes.
it was a
Well,
confusing
confused
issue.
by me.
Yeah, because it was one of those things where it just sort of redirected it to another policy,
Yeah.
redirected it to the right policy. So I guess we can put that one on for, or we can approve it. with the
Approve it
correction.
with that change.
Okay. All right, so let's just, with that
I
correction.
understand that now. Okay, good.
It's in.
I did
second-
not understand what I was typing with Debbie's.
That's what happened. I thought it was uncharacteristic.
Yeah, it was definitely not. sure.
Gotcha.
That was definitely me.
Okay. All right, so we'll make the, I'll accept the motion to approve BBB with that change. BBF, BBH, DFGA, BBB, BBBA, EHB, IHBA, IHBG, INBA, JFAM, JJA, JJJ, JJJ-R, JLCB, JLCB-R, JLCBA, JLDB. Second, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, abstentions, the motion carries. And I will take a motion to withdraw policy IHBG-R. Joe, all those in favor? Aye. And then we will take a motion to move EHAB to second reading. Joe, all those in favor? Aye. Ayes unanimous. The Nominations, recognitions, resignations.
There's no update on COVID-19.
Mr. Funds. Strategic plan. Nothing in there.
That's all set.
Okay. I don't see any students or staff. Is there staff update? Community, is there anyone from the community that? Nope. Okay, then I will, we don't have any reason to go public tonight. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Joe, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.